The council chamber stretched wide like an open sky made of metal and glass. Light came through tall windows that showed the stars beyond. Millions of them, each one marking worlds that bowed to the power sitting in this room. 12 species held seats here, their representatives arranged in a circle that had judged the fate of galaxies for 3,000 years. Vothkar stood at the center podium, his scales catching the light as he reviewed the quarterly reports. The Kethrani was proud of his work. In the 50 years since he had taken his position as council leader, the Galactic Council had expanded by 200 systems. Trade flourished, peace held maintained by the iron fist of council law. Any species that refused to join found themselves facing the full might of the combined fleets. Another successful cycle, Vothkar announced, his voice carrying the clicking consonants of his native tongue through the translation field. The mining operations on Kellis 4 have exceeded projections by 18%. The other council members nodded their approval. Ambassador Quillix, a crystalline being whose body hummed with stored energy, tilted forward slightly. The labor there is efficient. The humans work without complaint. Humans. Vothkar let the word hang in the air. He remembered the human homeworld. Earth, they had called it. A blue and green jewel that burned so beautifully when the plasma cannon struck. That had been 50 years ago, back when humanity had made the mistake of refusing council membership and attempting to chart their own path through the stars. The war had lasted 6 months. That was all. Earth had weapons, certainly, and their ships fought with desperate courage, but courage meant nothing against superior numbers and technology. The council fleets had surrounded their homeworld, delivered the ultimatum, and when the humans refused, they had made an example. Vothkar still remembered standing on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth's atmosphere catch fire. Billions dead in a single day. It had been necessary. The humans were too aggressive, too expansionist, too unwilling to accept their place in the natural order. They needed to learn that the galaxy belonged to those strong enough to take it. The survivors had been scattered. Labor camps across 100 worlds. The humans were good workers, Vothkar had to admit. Strong for their size, adaptable, and after the initial resistance was crushed, surprisingly obedient. They worked the deep mines where radiation made it dangerous for more valuable species. They maintained waste systems and cleaned recycling plants. They did the work that needed doing, but that no civilized species wanted to touch. 50 years and humanity had become invisible. Just another conquered race, broken and scattered, no longer worth thinking about. We have one final item on the agenda, Quillix said, interrupting Vothkar's memories. A human has requested an audience. Vothkar's inner eyelids flickered with surprise. A human here? She claims to represent the scattered human populations across council space. She has petitioned for 30 days to address this body. The request came through proper channels, so I saw no reason to deny her. Quillix's crystalline body pulsed with what might have been amusement. I thought it might provide entertainment. Laughter rippled through the council chamber. Vothkar felt his crest rise with pleasure. Yes, this would be entertaining. Perhaps the human would beg. Perhaps she would plead for better conditions for a homeworld, for the rights that they had lost when they chose defiance over wisdom. Send her in, Vothkar commanded. The chamber doors opened with a whisper of moving air. A single human walked through. She was smaller than Vothkar remembered humans being, though it had been decades since he had seen one up close. She wore the gray uniform of a labor camp prisoner, the fabric worn but clean. Her hair was pulled back from her face, showing skin marked with age lines and scars. She walked with steady steps, her eyes moving across the assembled council members without fear or deference. That was the first thing that struck Vothkar as wrong. She should have been afraid. She should have been awed by the power assembled here, by the beings who controlled the fate of trillions. Instead, she looked at them the way a scientist might observe specimens in a laboratory. The human reached the center of the chamber and stood there, silent. The translation field activated automatically, ready to carry her words to all present. Well, Vothkar demanded. You requested this audience. Speak. The human remained silent. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. Her eyes were brown, he noticed. Dark like the soil of a world he had burned. Perhaps she has forgotten how to speak, one of the other council members suggested. The humans on my stations work in silence. I have heard that prolonged isolation makes them lose language. Still, the human said nothing. She simply looked at each of them in turn, her expression unreadable. Vothkar felt his patience wearing thin. If you have nothing to say, then you waste our time. State your purpose or be removed. You conquered Earth? The human spoke finally, her voice barely above a whisper. The words carried through the translation field clear despite their softness. But there was something in the tone that made Vothkar pause. She had not asked a question. She had stated a fact, but the way she said it carried meaning he could not quite identify. Yes, Vothkar replied, drawing himself to his full height. Your world refused to join the council. Your species chose war. We granted you the war you sought, and you lost. That is the way of the universe. The strong survive. The weak serve. The human nodded slowly as if he had confirmed something she already knew. That expression on her face, it was not anger or grief or the resignation he expected. It was something else. Something that made the scales along Vothkar's spine prickle with an instinct he had not felt since his youth, when he had been prey instead of predator. My name is Sarah Chen, the human said, still in that quiet voice. I was a xenobiologist before the war. I studied how different species adapt to new environments, how they survive when their habitats are destroyed. Fascinating, Vothkar said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. You came here to discuss your extinct profession? No, Sarah Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. I came here to tell you what humanity learned from you. You taught us so much, you see. About survival, about adaptation, about what it takes to persist when the entire galaxy wants you erased. Quillix leaned forward, energy crackling through their crystalline structure. This is pointless. Remove her. Wait. The word came from Ambassador Tyrell, a feathered being whose species had joined the council voluntarily centuries ago. Let her speak. I am curious what she thinks she can tell us. Sarah Chen turned to face Tyrell, and Vothkar saw the ambassador flinch slightly under that gaze. You made a mistake, Sarah Chen said. You thought you conquered Earth, you thought you broke humanity. But you did something far worse. She paused, and her smile widened just slightly. You scattered us. You gave us 50 years, and you stopped paying attention. The chamber fell silent. Vothkar felt that prickling sensation grow stronger. What are you saying? He demanded. Sarah Chen looked back at him, and in her eyes, Vothkar suddenly saw something that made his blood run cold. Not fear, not submission, but certainty, the absolute confidence of someone who held all the winning pieces on the board. I am saying, she whispered, that you have already lost. The silence in the council chamber stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Sarah Chen stood in the center, her gray prison uniform somehow looking less like a mark of defeat and more like a uniform chosen for purpose. The council members stared at her, trying to understand what she meant. Vothkar recovered first. He had not survived 3,000 years of galactic politics by letting primitive species unsettle him. He laughed, the sound harsh through the translation field. You have already lost? What games are you playing, human? You stand alone before the combined power of 12 species. Your world is ash. Your people are scattered across 100 labor camps, mining ore and cleaning waste. You have nothing. Sarah Chen did not flinch. She did not argue. She simply waited, her hands clasped behind her back in a posture that looked almost military. Vothkar remembered now that humans had military traditions. He had broken their armies personally. She seeks to waste our time, Ambassador Quillix declared. This is pointless theater. Guards, remove her. No. Sarah Chen spoke the word quietly, but something in her tone made the guards pause at the chamber entrance. You will want to hear this. Not because I am asking, but because what I am about to tell you has already begun, and you need to understand what is happening to your empire. Ambassador Tyrell's feathers ruffled with curiosity. You claim to bring information? Then share it. Explain how you think you have already won. Sarah Chen nodded. She reached into her uniform pocket slowly, giving the guards time to see that she held no weapon. She pulled out a small data chip, the kind used for basic information storage across council space. May I? She asked, gesturing to the holographic display at the center of the chamber. Vothkar waved his clawed hand dismissively. Show us your meaningless data. Then we will return you to your camp, where you belong. Sarah Chen walked to the display terminal. She moved with care, like someone who understood she was being watched for any sign of threat. She inserted the chip, and the holographic projector came to life above them. The galaxy appeared in miniature, spinning slowly. Thousands of stars marked council territory, each one glowing with the color that indicated their production status. green for agricultural worlds, blue for manufacturing, red for mining operations. It was a map of power, of resources, of an empire that had stood for millennia. 50 years ago, you destroyed my homeworld, Sarah Chen said, her voice carrying through the chamber. You killed billions of my people. You took the survivors and scattered them. You thought you were showing mercy by letting some of us live. She touched the display and suddenly red dots began appearing throughout the map. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They appeared on nearly every world in council space, clustering around key locations. These are human populations, Sarah Chen explained. Every labor camp. Every mining colony. Every station where you sent my people to do the work that your species considered beneath them. Vothkar studied the display. The distribution was exactly as he remembered authorizing. Humans on radiation-soaked mining worlds. Humans in the deep stations where life support was minimal. Humans in positions where their deaths would be unfortunate but not costly. Yes, Vothkar said. We gave your people jobs. We let you survive. Is this where you thank us? Sarah Chen turned to look at him, and her smile was sad in a way that made Vothkar uncomfortable. It was the expression of someone who pitied him. You gave us access, she said. You put us everywhere. In your mines, yes, but also in your maintenance tunnels, in your waste processing, in your data centers, in your agricultural facilities, in your communications networks. You put us in every place that you did not want to see, doing every job that you considered too dirty or too dangerous or too boring for your own people. She touched the display again, and the red dots began connecting with thin lines. They formed a web, intricate and complete, touching every major system in council space. We are your janitors, Sarah Chen continued. We clean your stations. We maintain your life support systems. We process your waste. We grow your food on agricultural worlds where the work is backbreaking and the pay is minimal. We repair your ships and docks where radiation exposure is high. We monitor your data networks during the overnight shifts when no one else wants to work. Quilix's crystalline body pulsed with irritation. So you admit you are servants. This proves nothing except that the council made use of available resources. Resources. Sarah Chen repeated the word like she was tasting something bitter. Yes, that is what you called us. That was your second mistake. Your first was leaving us alive. Your second was thinking of us as resources instead of as people. Because resources do not think. Resources do not plan. Resources do not spend 50 years learning everything about the systems they maintain. Ambassador Terrell leaned forward. What are you saying? Sarah Chen touched the display once more, and the web of connections began to pulse with light.
I am saying that every human in council space has spent the last 50 years in a position that you consider insignificant.
And we have learned things. We have learned how your life support systems work. We have learned the routes of your supply ships. We have learned the encryption on your data networks. We have learned which agricultural worlds feed which populations. We have learned where your spare parts are manufactured. We have learned everything about the infrastructure that keeps trillions of beings alive. The chamber grew very quiet. Vothkar felt that prickling sensation along his spine grow stronger. You are threatening sabotage? Vothkar demanded. That is your grand revelation? If your people damage council property, they will be executed. All of them. We will find every human in our space and eliminate them. Yes, Sarah Chen agreed. You could do that. You have the weapons. You have the authority. You could kill every human in council space. She paused. But before you do, ask yourself this question. How long does your empire survive without us? Vothkar opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. He looked at the web of connections on the display, at the thousands of points where humans worked. You put us everywhere, Sarah Chen said again, her voice still that terrible whisper. You made us invisible. You made us the people who fix things when they break, who grow things when you are hungry, who clean up after you. And now, after 50 years, we know your empire better than you do. We know the systems. We know the weak points. We know exactly what happens if those systems fail. She walked closer to the council members, her hands still clasped behind her back. You taught us a lesson 50 years ago. You taught us that mercy is weakness. You taught us that compassion is a flaw. You taught us that the strong take what they want, and the weak have no rights. Thank you for that lesson. We learned it well. Ambassador Quilix began to speak, but Sarah Chen held up one hand. You are already receiving reports. Check your communications. Minor system failures across council space. Nothing major. Just small problems. A power fluctuation here. A communication delay there. Agricultural shipments running slightly behind schedule. Life support systems requiring unexpected maintenance. Vothkar felt his blood turn to ice. He activated his personal communicator with a quick gesture. Messages flooded in, marked with low priority flags. He had been ignoring them during the council session, as he always did. But now he read them. Power station on Kellis 4 experiencing minor fluctuations. Agricultural output on Trevin Prime down by 3%. Communication relay at Junction Station 7 requiring maintenance. Life support on mining platform Gamma reporting unexpected diagnostics. Dozens of small problems. All happening at once. All in places where humans worked. These failures are coordinated, Vothkar said slowly. Yes, Sarah Chen confirmed. They are. And they are just the beginning. A demonstration, if you will. To show you that we can affect your systems whenever we choose. To show you that the invisible people you stopped noticing are actually the ones who keep your empire functioning. She turned back to the display, looking at the web of human connections across the galaxy. You conquered Earth, you killed our world. You tried to kill our spirit. But you made one fatal mistake. You assumed that survival was not enough for us. You assumed that we would not spend every single day of the last 50 years planning for this moment. Sarah Chen looked back at the council members, and her expression was no longer sad. It was hard, like stone that had been exposed to fire and pressure and had become something new. Mercy, she whispered, is no longer a human word. You taught us that. And now you are going to learn what humanity becomes when mercy dies. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted at each other, at Sarah Chen, at their own staff members who scrambled to verify the reports flooding their communication systems. Vothkar stood frozen, staring at the holographic display where thousands of red dots marked human positions throughout council space. Silence, Vothkar roared, his voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell quiet, though tension vibrated in the air like a plucked string. He turned to Sarah Chen, who waited with that same terrible patience. You threaten the council. You threaten trillions of innocent lives. This is terrorism. Sarah Chen shook her head slowly. No, this is consequence. There is a difference. Semantics, Quilix spat, their crystalline body flashing with angry red light. You admit to coordinating attacks on council infrastructure. This is an act of war. War? Sarah Chen's voice carried something that might have been amusement. We had a war. 50 years ago. You won. Remember? You killed my world. You scattered my people. You made us slaves in all but name. This is not war. This is something you taught us about. The strong taking what they want. Ambassador Tyrell raised one feathered appendage. Explain yourself clearly, human. What exactly are you doing? What do you want? Sarah Chen nodded, as if Tyrell had asked the right question. She touched the holographic display again, and the view zoomed in on a single system. Kellis 4, where earlier reports indicated power fluctuations. Let me tell you about Kellis 4, Sarah Chen said. It is a mining world, rich in heavy metals essential for your ship construction. The entire planet is covered in automated mining facilities. 17 billion tons of ore extracted annually. That ore feeds your shipyards, which build the fleets that enforce council law. The display showed the mining facilities, massive installations that dug deep into the planet's crust. Small figures moved through the facilities, maintaining equipment and monitoring systems. Humans run the maintenance operations on Kellis 4. 30,000 of us. We check the drilling equipment. We repair the conveyor systems. We monitor the processing plants. We do this work because the radiation levels make it dangerous for most council species. Humans are more resistant to radiation, you see. Not immune, but resistant. We die slower. That made us valuable for this particular job. Sarah Chen's voice remained neutral, almost clinical as she described this. The power fluctuations you are experiencing on Kellis 4 are not random. The humans there have stopped performing certain maintenance procedures. Nothing dramatic. They still do enough work to avoid immediate suspicion, but they are no longer fixing problems before they become critical. They are no longer replacing parts before they fail. They are letting the systems degrade naturally. Vothkar felt his claws dig into the podium. You are sabotaging council operations. No, Sarah Chen corrected. Sabotage is active destruction. This is passive negligence. The humans on Kellis 4 are simply not maintaining systems to the standard they did before. They are doing the minimum required. And because you never paid attention to what they actually did, you have no idea how much. Their effort was hiding problems in your aging equipment. She zoomed the display out to show the entire galaxy again. This pattern is repeating across every system where humans work. Not sabotage, not destruction, simply the absence of the extra effort you never knew you were receiving. Ambassador. Tyrell's feathers ruffled with what might have been concern. You are saying that humans have been performing beyond expected standards, and now you are reverting to minimum standards? Not exactly, Sarah Chen replied. We are performing below minimum standards. We are doing just enough work to avoid immediate execution, but not enough to keep your systems running smoothly. And because there are humans in nearly every critical infrastructure point across Council space, the effect is multiplicative. She touched the display, and suddenly the red dots began pulsing in sequence, showing a pattern. Watch. This is what is happening right now, as we speak. On agricultural world Trevin Prime, humans are processing food shipments 3% slower than normal. This seems minor, but Trevin Prime feeds 15 station populations. Those stations notice the delay, but they still have stockpiles, so they do not panic yet. The display shifted to show another system. On Junction Station 7, humans in the communication center are allowing message routing delays. Nothing critical is blocked, but efficiency drops by 7%. Again, this seems minor, but Junction Station 7 is a major relay point. That 7% efficiency loss affects communications for 40 systems. Another shift. On Mining Platform Gamma, humans are reporting life support malfunctions that require extensive diagnostics. The diagnostics find minor issues, just enough to justify the time spent. But while diagnostics run, sections of the platform operate at reduced capacity. Production drops. Sarah Chen stepped back from the display, letting the council members see the pattern spreading across their empire. Each individual incident is minor, explainable, not worth serious attention. But they are all happening simultaneously, and they are all in systems that depend on other systems. Food transport depends on communication relays. Mining depends on life support. Manufacturing depends on power generation. It is all connected. Bothkar finally understood what he was seeing. It was not an attack. It was a demonstration of interdependence that the Council had never realized existed. The humans had become so integrated into Council operations that their labor was assumed to be constant, like gravity or the speed of light. How many humans are involved in this? Bothkar demanded. All of them, Sarah Chen said simply. Every human in Council space received the same message at the same time, through channels you never monitored because you never thought we were worth monitoring. Every human understands their role in this pattern. Every human has stopped performing above minimum standards. Quillix flashed with agitation. This is impossible. You could not coordinate millions of individuals across such distances without us detecting the communications. Sarah Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You are right that we could not use your communication systems without detection, so we used something else, something slower, but much harder to detect. We used a network that existed before you conquered us. We used human culture, she gestured to the display. Every human in Council space knows certain songs, certain stories, certain phrases. These are cultural artifacts from before the war. You allowed us to keep them because you thought they were harmless. You thought they were just primitive nostalgia, but we encoded messages in them. Variations in how a song is sung, changes in how a story is told, subtle differences that only humans would notice. Over 50 years, we built a communication network based on cultural transmission. Slow, yes, but invisible to your monitoring systems. Ambassador Tyrell made a sound that the translation field rendered as impressed surprise. You weaponized your own culture. We preserved our culture, Sarah Chen corrected. And yes, we made it useful. Every human learned how to recognize the patterns. Every human knew that when certain signals appeared, it was time to stop trying so hard. to let your system show their age, to reveal how much you depended on us. Vothkar felt something close to respect, which he immediately crushed. Clever, but ultimately pointless. You have shown us that you can cause minor disruptions. This gives you no leverage. We can replace your labor with automated systems. We can import workers from other species. You have gained nothing except ensuring your own extinction. Saracen looked at him for a long moment. Can you? Replace us, I mean. Let me show you something else. She changed the display again. This time it showed resource allocation across council space, food distribution, power generation, medical supplies, water treatment, transportation networks, 1,000 different systems that kept trillions of beings alive. Your empire is efficient, Saracen said. Perhaps too efficient. You have optimized everything. You produce exactly enough food to feed your populations, with minimal surplus. You generate exactly enough power to run your stations and ships with minimal excess. You treat exactly enough water, manufacture exactly enough medicine, transport exactly enough materials. It is a beautiful system. Very efficient. She highlighted sections of the display, but efficient systems are fragile. They depend on everything working at expected levels. They have no room for error. And right now, errors are beginning to cascade through your systems. The display showed agricultural worlds where food production was dropping, manufacturing centers where power fluctuations were causing delays, medical stations where supply shipments were running behind schedule. None of it was critical yet, but the margins were shrinking. You optimized your empire using human labor as a constant factor, Saracen explained. You built your efficiency on the assumption that we would always work at maximum capacity. But we are not a constant factor. We are people, and people can choose how hard they work. Vothkar's mind raced through the implications. If the humans maintained this slowdown, if they continued performing at reduced capacity, the entire council economy would need to be recalibrated. Stockpiles would need to be increased. Redundancy would need to be built back into systems. Resources would need to be diverted from expansion to basic maintenance. The reports came faster now. Vothkar watched his communication display fill with alerts, each one marked with increasing urgency. What had started as minor fluctuations was spreading, growing, becoming something that could no longer be ignored or dismissed as coincidence. Life support failure on Station Theta 9. Non-critical areas affected. Repair crews responding. Agricultural shipment from Harvest World Kellan delayed by 17 hours. Station populations requesting updates. Power generation on Industrial Complex Varn, dropping to 83% capacity. Manufacturing quotas cannot be met. Water treatment on Colony World Hespen experiencing processing delays. Recommend activating emergency reserves. Each alert alone was manageable. Together they painted a picture of an empire beginning to hemorrhage from 1,000 small cuts. Stop this, Vothkar commanded, turning back to Saracen. Whatever message you sent, reverse it. Tell your people to return to normal operations. Saracen shook her head. I cannot. Cannot or will not? Quillix demanded. Cannot, Saracen repeated. You misunderstand what is happening. There is no central command. There is no human leader giving orders. What you are experiencing is something more fundamental. It is the collective choice of millions of people who have all reached the same conclusion independently. Ambassador Tyrell leaned forward. Explain. Saracen gestured to the holographic display. For 50 years, every human in council space has been invisible to you. We worked in places you never visited, did jobs you never thought about, lived lives you never considered. And during that time, we talked to each other. Not through your communication systems, but through the cultural network I described. We shared our stories. We remembered our dead. We kept alive the memory of Earth burning. Her voice remained calm, but something hard entered it. Every human knows what happened to our homeworld. Every human has lost someone. Family, friends, entire bloodlines erased. And every human has spent 50 years working for the species that destroyed everything we loved. Do you understand what that does to a people? The rage that builds when you must serve those who murdered your children? The council chamber was silent. Even the communication alerts seemed to pause, as if the galaxy itself was listening. We are not acting under orders, Saracen continued. We are acting under shared understanding. Every human reached the same point at the same moment. We all realized that we had the power to hurt you back, not through violence, not through open rebellion, but through simply choosing not to care anymore about whether your systems run smoothly. She touched the display, and the view shifted to show individual labor camps, humans working in mines and processing plants and maintenance tunnels. Their movements were slower than they should be. Not dramatically so, but enough to notice when multiplied across millions of workers. "Look at them," Sarah Chen said. "They are not breaking equipment. They are not attacking supervisors. They are simply working at the pace that suits them, rather than the pace you demand. And because you built your empire on the assumption that conquered labor would always maximize effort, even this small change is causing your systems to fail." Vothkar felt his rage building. "This is rebellion. We will punish every human involved." "With what?" Sarah Chen asked. "Execution? Go ahead. Kill every human in council space. But know that your empire will collapse long before you finish. Your food distribution will fail. Your stations will run out of breathable air. Your ships will drift without repairs. You built a machine so efficient that it cannot survive without every part functioning perfectly. And right now millions of those parts have decided they no longer care about perfection." She walked to stand directly in front of Vothkar's podium. "You wanted to teach us our place. You wanted to show us that defiance leads to destruction. You succeeded. We learned our place. We learned it so well that we became part of your empire's foundation. And now you have discovered what happens when the foundation decides it is tired of holding up the structure." New alerts flashed across the communication displays. More severe this time. Station Theta 9 life support failure spreading to critical areas. Evacuation being considered. Agricultural reserves on Junction Station 7 depleted faster than projected. Food rationing may be required. Industrial complex Varn experiencing cascading power failures. Total shutdown possible within 48 hours. Medical supplies delayed on 17 worlds. Emergency procedures being implemented. Ambassador Tyrell stood, their feathers flattened with distress. "This is escalating beyond minor disruptions. People are at risk." "Yes," Sarah Chen agreed. "People are at risk. Trillions of them. Your people, the species you have sworn to protect as council members. They are at risk because your empire's efficiency has become its greatest weakness. Because you optimized away all your safety margins. Because you made yourselves dependent on the people you tried to destroy." She turned to address the entire council. Every human in council space is making the same calculation right now. They are asking themselves why they should work hard to keep your people safe, when you showed no concern for human safety 50 years ago. They are asking why they should maintain your life support systems when you burned our atmosphere. They are asking why they should care about your children when you killed ours. "This is genocide," Quillix accused. "You are deliberately causing deaths through negligence." Sarah Chen's expression hardened. "No. Genocide is what you did to Earth. What we are doing is withdrawing our consent to be your invisible support structure. If people die because your systems fail, that is not our responsibility. That is the consequence of you building an empire on conquered labor, and assuming that labor would be eternal." Vothkar's claws scraped against the podium. "What do you want?" he asked again. "You have made your point. You have shown us your power to disrupt. Now tell us what you want so we can negotiate terms." "Negotiate?" Sarah Chen laughed, and it was a bitter sound. "You think this is a negotiation? You think we have come here to bargain for scraps from your table? No, counselor. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to dictate terms." She pulled out another data chip and inserted it into the display. A document appeared, written in clear language that required no translation. "These are humanity's requirements," Sarah Chen announced. "First, immediate cessation of all forced labor. Every human in council space becomes a free citizen, with full rights under council law. Second, material support for the reconstruction of Earth. You will provide ships, resources, and technology to restore our homeworld. Third, humanity receives a seat on this council with full voting rights. We will have a voice in the governance of the galaxy you tried to remove us from." Vothkar read the terms, his mind rejecting them even as he understood their logic. "Impossible. This would require restructuring the entire council charter. It would cost resources we cannot spare. It would set a precedent that every conquered species could follow." "Yes," Sarah Chen said. "It would. And you will do it anyway. Because your alternative is to watch your empire crumble as every human in your space continues to withdraw their effort." We have shown you we can cause problems with passive negligence. Imagine what happens if we become actively destructive. Ambassador Tyrell spoke carefully. You are threatening violence if we refuse? I am stating consequences, Sarah Chen replied. Right now, humans are simply not trying very hard. We are doing minimal work. We are letting your systems fail naturally. But if you force us, if you try to execute us or imprison us or otherwise punish us for withdrawing our labor, then yes, there will be humans who decide that if they are going to die anyway, they might as well take some systems with them. Not because we order it, but because it would be the logical choice. She let that sink in. You cannot monitor every human. You cannot watch every maintenance tunnel, every processing plant, every life support junction. There are millions of us, and we are everywhere. The moment you make us choose between death and defiance, you will discover just how much damage we can cause. The council chamber filled with urgent conversation. Representatives argued with their staff members, debated with each other, calculated costs and consequences. Fothkar watched them, watched his carefully constructed order begin to crack. You are asking us to elevate the species we conquered, Fothkar said, to give you power in the council, to admit that we were wrong to attack Earth. Sarah Chen met his eyes. I am not asking. I am telling you what will happen. You will accept these terms, or you will watch your empire collapse. You will give humanity a voice, or you will learn what it means to lose the invisible labor that keeps trillions alive. You will rebuild our world, or we will let yours fall into chaos. She stepped back from the podium. You have 72 hours to decide. During that time, every human in council space will continue performing at current reduced capacity. If you accept our terms, we return to normal operations. If you refuse, we reduce our effort further. And if you try to punish us, we stop working entirely. And if we simply kill you? Vothkar asked. Here now. If we execute you as a terrorist and then systematically eliminate every human in council space? Sarah Chen smiled, sad and terrible. Then you prove that we were right to stop believing in mercy. The 72 hours passed like a slow poison working through the council's body. Every minute brought new reports of systems degrading, supply chains breaking down, and populations beginning to panic. What had started as minor inconveniences cascaded into genuine crises. Station Theta 9 evacuated completely after life support failed in critical areas. Agricultural stockpiles across 40 systems dropped to emergency levels. Industrial production fell to 60% capacity. Medical emergencies went unanswered as supply chains broke down. And through it all, humans continued working at their own pace, neither helping nor hindering beyond their minimal obligations. Bothkar stood in his private chambers, staring at the reports that filled his displays. The council had debated for 48 hours straight. Some members wanted to accept Sarah Chen's terms. Others demanded military action. A few suggested attempting to replace human labor immediately, though the logistical analysis made it clear that was impossible in the time required. In the end, it came down to mathematics. The council could either accept humanity's terms and restore stability, or they could refuse and watch their empire collapse. Pride demanded refusal. Survival demanded acceptance. Ambassador Tyrell had said it best during the debates. We conquered them with superior force. Now they have defeated us with superior patience. The question is not whether we accept their terms. The question is whether we learn from this experience or repeat it with the next species we try to crush. Vothkar had no answer to that. He had spent his entire life believing that strength was the only currency that mattered in the galaxy. Now a conquered species had taught him that there were other kinds of strength. The strength of being necessary. The strength of collective action. The strength of people who had nothing left to lose except their chains. The communication chime interrupted his thoughts. Councillor Vothkar, the vote is complete. The council has reached a decision. Vothkar returned to the council chamber. All 12 representatives were present, though many looked as exhausted as he felt. Sarah Chen stood in the center again, waiting. She had remained on the council station during the 72 hours, held in comfortable quarters but under guard. Not that the guards mattered. She was just one human. The real power was scattered across the galaxy, embedded in every system. The council has reviewed your terms, Vothkar announced, his voice carrying the weight of defeat disguised as diplomacy. We have decided to accept them with modifications. Sarah Chen raised one eyebrow. Modifications? Humanity will receive citizenship rights and legal protections, Vothkar continued. We will provide resources for Earth's reconstruction. However, the council seat must be earned through a transitional process. We cannot simply award it based on economic leverage. No, Sarah Chen said flatly. The single word hung in the air. Vothkar felt his crest rise with anger. You refuse our compromise? I refuse your attempt to delay the inevitable, Sarah Chen replied. You want to create a transitional process that takes years, maybe decades. During that time, you would work to reduce your dependence on human labor. You would build automated systems, train other species, restructure your economy, and once you no longer needed us, you would find reasons why humanity still was not ready for council membership. She shook her head. No, the terms are not negotiable. Immediate citizenship. Immediate reconstruction support. Immediate council seat. You accept all of it now or humans continue to withdraw their labor. Quilix flashed with frustration. You ask us to surrender completely, to admit total defeat. I ask you to acknowledge reality, Sarah Chen corrected. You lost this confrontation the moment you made yourselves dependent on conquered labor. The defeat happened 50 years ago. You just did not realize it until now. Ambassador Terrell spoke up. If we grant you a council seat immediately, what guarantee do we have that you will not use it to destabilize the entire council structure? Sarah Chen considered the question. None, you have no guarantees. Just as we had no guarantees when you attacked Earth. Just as we have had no guarantees for 50 years while we worked in your labor camps. The difference is that now you must trust us, rather than us trusting you. How does it feel? Fothkar closed his eyes briefly, understanding that this too was part of the lesson. Trust had always flowed one direction in the council. Conquered species were expected to trust that the council would treat them fairly. But the council never had to trust conquered species in return. If we accept your terms in full, Vothkar said slowly, what happens to the humans currently withdrawing their labor? Will they return to normal operations? Yes, Sarah Chen confirmed. Once we have citizenship rights, once reconstruction efforts begin, once humanity has a voice in council decisions, then there is no reason to continue the withdrawal. We will return to maintaining your systems properly. But understand this is not surrender on our part. This is us choosing to participate in your society as equals rather than as slaves. She paused. And there is one more term, non-negotiable. Vothkar felt his stomach sink. What? Every species in council space must send representatives to Earth. Once the reconstruction begins, once the first city is rebuilt, you will come to our world. You will see what you destroyed. You will walk through the memorial sites we will build for the billions you killed. You will face what you did. That is unnecessary, Quilix protested. We have acknowledged our actions. Why must we witness the damage? Sarah Chen's expression hardened. Because if you do not see it, you will forget it. If you do not face what you did, you will do it again to the next species that defies you. This is not about punishment. This is about making sure the lesson is remembered. You must understand the cost of conquest, or you will pay it again. Vothkar looked around the council chamber, seeing his fellow representatives struggle with this final demand. It was one thing to grant rights and resources. It was another to force the council to confront their own capacity for genocide. We accept, Ambassador Tyrell said suddenly, all terms, including the memorial visits. We accept because we must, but also because it is right. The other council members slowly added their agreement. Some did so grudgingly, others with what seemed like relief. Vothkar was the last to speak. The council accepts humanity's terms in full, he announced. Citizenship, reconstruction support, council membership, and memorial obligations. Let the record show that as of this moment, humanity is recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities. Sarah Chen nodded. Then I will send the message to all humans immediately. Normal operations will resume within hours. She activated her communication device, and Vothkar could see her hands shake slightly. The first sign of emotion he had witnessed from her. She sent a simple message, using that same cultural code she had described. Within hours, it would spread through the human population. The invisible workers would return to being invisible again, but this time by choice rather than by conquest. 5 years later, Vothkar stood on Earth's surface. The planet was still scarred, but life had returned. Oceans were being cleaned. Atmosphere was being restored. Cities were rising from the ruins. He walked through the memorial garden with Ambassador Tyrell and a dozen other council representatives. The garden stretched for miles, filled with walls bearing names. Billions of names. Every human who had died in the war, recorded in stone that would last for millennia. A young council member, a Kethrani like Vothkar but from a generation born after the war, stopped to read the names. So many, the youth whispered. Yes, Vothkar agreed. So many. Sarah Chen approached them, no longer wearing prison gray but formal diplomatic attire. She had become humanity's first council representative, a position she held with the same quiet intensity she had shown in that chamber 5 years ago. Thank you for coming, Sarah Chen said. Your terms required it, Vothkar replied. Yes, but you came anyway. That means something. She gestured to the memorial walls. Every council member who visits must spend at least 1 day here, walking among the names, understanding the weight of the decision that was made. Do you understand now? Vothkar looked at the endless walls of names. I understand that we created an enemy out of people who could have been allies. I understand that strength alone is not enough to build lasting peace. I understand that we failed in the worst way possible, and yet you survived the failure, Sarah Chen noted. Your empire adapted. Species are leaving the council, yes, but those who remain are stronger for having learned this lesson. It was true. In the 5 years since humanity gained their council seat, 17 species had declared independence. The council could have crushed them militarily but chose not to. The lesson of Earth had taught them that some costs were too high to pay. Do you forgive us? The young Kethrani asked Sarah Chen. Sarah Chen looked at the youth for a long moment. Forgiveness implies you deserve it. That there is some action you could take, some words you could say, that would balance the scales. But there is no balance. Billions died. That cannot be forgiven because it cannot be fixed. She turned back to the memorial walls. Instead, we move forward. We build our world again. We participate in council governance to ensure this never happens to another species.